The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello and welcome to another extra episode of the Sciforror Film Podcast. I'm Andy Walker and I am joined today by actress Pat Garrett. Hello Pat, how are you doing?
Hello, Andy. I'm very well, thank you. Busy,
Good,
busy, but otherwise, well, thank you.
good. I'm glad to hear it. Now, I had the pleasure of seeing you and meeting you in the film Wyvern Hill. I still refuse to call it Hollow.
Me too. I absolutely refuse.
Um, but I thought it was a wonderful film. For me, it was the best film of the Romford Horror Film Festival that
Oh,
year.
thank you so much.
I
Thank you.
really, really did like it, and you deserved all the plaudits that you got for it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's good. Um, your career has been quite varied and quite wide and all that sort of thing. But how did you actually get into acting? And I know, yeah, kind of since sort of 2000, early 2000s, you've done a lot more kind of horror and sci-fi stuff that you hadn't done earlier. So how did you get into acting in the first place, and what sort of brought you to do the horror and sci-fi things?
Okay, well, it's a long story. So I started when I was age 4, as a classical ballerina,
All right.
and I worked professionally. In fact, I got my first job when I was 18, which was in the musical Pickwick at Billingham Forum
I
Theatre.
remember that. I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, long, long time ago. And I'd never even heard of equity at the time. And I was told, well, Pat, you have to join equity if you're going to be on an equity contract. So I
Yeah.
joined equity. I've never left. And I'm now a long-serving member because it's our union. So I have.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I worked as a professional classical ballerina in companies in Germany, 2 years at the Opera House in Kiel, and then a year in the San Marcos Ballet in Lima,
Mm.
and tore both cartilages in my knee,
Oh,
age 22. So um, once I got over the sadness of that, of all of that, I retrained as an actor and worked in repertory theatres all over the UK and musicals and you name it. And then by sheer chance, I got into choreography. I was in a show, in fact, and someone said to me, "Oh, Pat, you used to dance, didn't you? Can you do a bit of choreography?" And that took me on a completely new route. And I've always sort of just thought, "Oh, well, this is happening, so I'll just go along with it." And I was incredibly lucky. I choreographed a short film called Goody Two Shoes, which at the time, it was in the days when they had a half-hour film on with the features, and it was on with Staying Alive.
all right.
And yeah, and it won the BAFTA for Best Short Film that year, and it
Mm.
was the only British short nominated for an Oscar. So it was kind of great. And that led
Yeah.
to Santa Claus the movie, choreographing that, and Little Shop of Horrors, which was the most extraordinary thing. And that would be the first real venturing into horror in a way. Incredible experience, six months at Pinewood Studios, 7 months at Pinewood Studios. And then that led to Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island and doing quite a lot of TV choreography. And then I got into directing for a while, and I actually directed a feature film in the Philippines.
All
Can you
right.
believe? Yeah, I directed a short film for an Irish writer composer called Johnny Maybe and the Porn Star. And it was another horror film because this woman basically was murdering the men who fell in love with her
Okay.
to to create compost for her beautiful rose garden.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and I mean, it was an extraordinary horror film because um, I was directing it, but she had to stab this poor new latest boyfriend in the bath, and he was supposed to get a retractable knife, but he didn't.
Ah,
So, so creating the illusion of her actually stabbing him was quite hard. And then we sort of had rose petals falling, and I was standing on the back of a sofa with hands of petals in my hands, just kind of throwing them in front of the screen. But yeah, so that was a sort of horror musical,
right.
which was fun. And then
Oh,
I suppose I suddenly realized how much I was actually missing performing.
mm,
And I thought, well, I'll just, mature actress, I'm just going to go back into spotlight. And if nothing happens, at least I won't regret having tried. And thank God and touch wood, I was lucky. And although it's mainly been indie projects, they've all been really, really sort of challenging and exciting and really enjoyable. And the horror films, I mean, I suppose Wyvern, I did do a few short horrors actually.
yeah.
Um, and they were slightly disastrous. When I first went back into Spotlight, of course, the industry had changed so much that whatever else happened, you needed a show reel.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll just apply for six student shorts, and I'll have six nice little short films, and I'll use the excerpts. It took 30 short films
Oh,
to get a show reel that was reasonable. I mean,
that's a
either,
lot.
the writing was terrible, the lighting was terrible, the other actors were terrible, or it was just, it was
Yeah.
a complete disaster. But I did get my show really in the end. But there were
Oh,
quite a few that were horror films. I mean, there was a film called Doris, which I really enjoyed, which this mad bingo playing woman was just sort of basically killing people who came to her bingo games. Um, so there've been horror films all the way along, and they've always been great fun to do. And then I had, as you know, with Wyvern Hill, like this break from Jonathan, and I just thought I have to do this.
yeah.
He'd actually lost the original actress he cast, in fact,
Okay.
and apparently her agent decided he didn't want her to do it.
Oh,
And so Jonathan put a post on social media, and he was very open about it, that it was unpaid. But my feeling is, I'm not going to reject anything in case it's something that I think actually is really worth doing. And
yeah.
if I can afford to do it, I will. And he sent me the script, and I just thought, wow, this is just great. And he said to me, would you just pick any scene you like and do a self-tape and send it in? And happily, it was unanimous to cast me. And it was incredible to do. And then, and I am heartbroken about what's happened to it.
Yeah, it's part of the problem. Once you kind of like hand over the film to distributors, then you're kind of at their mercy
Yeah.
in a way. And I think that's the problem. It suffered from the fact that the distributors obviously didn't understand it as a film. And the thing is, it's quite a British film, I think,
Yes. Yes.
in the way
Yeah.
it is. And they tried to market it as like an American film, and it was never going to work that way.
No. But they were also selling it as a slasher film.
Yeah, and
And it's not. It's a
no,
family drama with extreme horror in it, but it's not a slasher film.
no, it's much more a sort of psychological, sort of
Yeah.
slow
Yeah.
burn than anything
Yeah.
else. And
Yeah.
it kind of like got elements of folk horror
Yes.
and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But those sort of films are never going to sell if you try and push them as being a slasher thing or
No.
push them being, that sort of market.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the people who bought it just wanted to make money. They
Yeah,
didn't get what they had. Because I remember when we were filming, I mean, you talk about the folk horror thing, going into the church, in Hereford and actually seeing the wyverns, the pictures, they were
yeah,
actually there.
yeah,
It's a genuine myth, folklore thing that is for real. And it was fascinating to see. And the whole feel of the film and the way Jonathan shot it. and the writing. It was incredible to be involved in that, and I
Um,
really loved doing it.
I must admit, there were two things about the film that struck me. One was the fact that it was so it was a really well paced and well laid
Yeah.
out film and well laid out story. But the other thing was it's that there are very few films I've seen that can put across um, at a personal level the whole element of things like dementia and that sort of thing, and that was so well handled in this film. It just worked so brilliantly.
Thank you. Yes, I was very sensitive to the subject because I have had experience of it from my partner's family. And it is the most awful thing, but
Yeah,
and it was also the fact that it was borderline in the was it really was she imagining everything? No.
yeah,
But she was imagining a lot because obviously her husband was no longer there.
yeah,
So, and the borderline thing, I think the early stages of dementia must be incredibly hard to deal with, and I think for me personally, as I get older, every time I forget a name or forget, I'm thinking because the older you get, the more there's in there in
yeah,
that poor little brain of ours, and whenever I have that moment of thinking, what is her name or what is his name or what is that called?
yeah,
I just think, no, no, please, not that. And actually the wonderful thing about acting, and although self-tapes are demoralizing in many ways, just the process of actually having to learn a page or two or three of dialogue in a couple of days and record them yourself and do the whole thing, it exercises the brain, and
yeah,
it's vitally important,
yeah.
even if it leads to nothing. I mean, funnily enough, I did a self-tape for a horror film recently, which absolutely loved it. And I was recalled for it too. It was a horror film filming in Wales. I don't even know if it's actually happening,
Okay.
but it was an interesting self-tape because because my background is, I have that dance background. I had to do two very, very different scenes. And one of them was a complete improvised dance scene, but
All right.
real horror. And it was fantastic to do. I loved doing it. And then I had to do a scene that was a completely normal elderly woman in a scene. And doing those two tapes, the contrast was just great. And having a recall was fantastic. I had the recall, and
Yeah.
the director writer said to me, you just were amazing in your dance scene. So that was wonderful. But I didn't get the job,
Ah,
which is heartbreaking because
yeah.
it was a brilliant horror film.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I won't give too much away because I don't even know whether it's filming. And I don't even know whether the title's going to change. It was called Unspeakable.
All right.
But I've seen no evidence of it anywhere. So they may have changed the title. They may be filming it. One just doesn't. The issue we've all aware of at the moment is in the industry is that money is tight
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
less productions are being made. And I
Yeah.
feel so grateful that I was able to be in Bonekeeper, um, which obviously is yet another horror film.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was going to say there's two horror films or two films. One's a horror thriller, and the other one's horror that are kind of both sort of like this you done this year or that are coming out this year. You got Lure and Bonekeeper. When were they? I mean, have they been made in the last year? Then I don't see.
Bonekeeper we filmed last April.
Right.
That was with John Rhys Davis was the star of it, and it's been released now.
Oh, it's actually
It,
out now.
oh,
I
yeah,
didn't realize it was out.
it is. Yeah, it's available. I think it hasn't had the American release yet, but it's on Prime. It's on Apple. Um, I think I'm not sure whether you have to pay for it. I've ordered it anyway,
Yeah.
because but we had the premiere at Fright Fest in Glasgow, and I went along, and it was just great. And it's such a brilliant film.
Cool.
And I just have a small scene in it, but I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was great to do. And Howard is doing extraordinary work. But Lure, I'm in Lure as well.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, having said that, I was there for 3 weeks. That was it was a tough one because it was right in the middle of COVID, and um, I was supposed to start filming, and then I was sort of sitting in my hotel thinking, I haven't had a schedule yet. What's happening? I should be rehearsing tomorrow. And I got a message to say the director's got COVID,
oh
the
God.
makeup lady's got COVID. So I'm afraid, Pat, you're going to have to be tested. Fortunately, I was negative, so I could go home again. But we resumed filming about 8 weeks later, and
Oh,
which, cost them a lot of money,
yeah, yeah.
put huge strain on the production. And so then I went back and I was there for 3 weeks and I shot about 6 different scenes. But in fact, if you blink, you'll miss me.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, no, I've done been before I did much of the way of acting. I did some extras work, and I was on sets for like 1 or 2 full days.
Yeah,
And then you look at the film and you kind of go, "Oh, there's 30 seconds of me, or less than 30 seconds of me, sort of just standing there as the camera pans past." You kind of go,
yeah, yeah,
"Is that it?"
yeah, yeah. Because I was kind of quite upset in a way, except that I'm really glad that I went to the cast and crew screening. But I had these really great fun. It was a comedy character.
All right.
So to do she was a completely mad grandmother who basically killing everyone who got in her way
That
and
sounds
thinking it
good.
was all such fun. And I had all these wonderful scenes, and there was only one little tiny scene that's left. And literally, I mean, if you drop to sleep for a minute, you'd miss me.
Well, I'm sure you still shine, and
Oh, thank you. I do look a bit mad in it.
I will have to get around to watching Bone Keeper. I didn't realise that was already
Oh,
in.
yes, no, do.
So I
I
will.
mean, I've seen it twice now, and I want to see it again because twice I've seen it, and each time I've just thought, oh my God, yes, yes. And what I love it when a horror film has got characters in that you connect with.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
if it's just about murder and slash and blood and horror, it's a bit alienating.
I,
But if you actually connect with characters and like them or find them funny or interesting, then what happens to them affects you. It matters.
yeah,
And the creatures in it, oh my God.
I think sometimes filmmakers get a bit lost. They forget that effects and blood and gore and all that sort of thing are all well and good, but you need to have a well-written story and well-developed
Yes.
characters.
Yes.
Otherwise, there's
Yes.
nothing to for those
No,
things to hang on.
no, no, because all you're left with is going, oh no, 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 no. And you want to be drawn in. And I think
Yeah,
Bone Keeper really draws you in. I mean, it's partly John Rhys Davis because he is amazing in it. But it was a fantastic project to be involved with. I'm
yeah,
really happy to have done it. And Howard is wonderful. So
yeah. I know it sounds good. I'm definitely going to have to
yeah, you
watch
must. You
that. I
really
will.
must. Absolutely, you must, Andy.
I will. I will. And I recommend it to everybody out there as well. Have a look
Absolutely.
on and see if you can find it on Prime and wherever, and give it.
Yeah, yeah.
I noticed. I mean, we have a few people that are sort of, we know that partly because they're interested in sci-fi and horror anyway, but they're very into video games and computer games and that sort of thing. And I noticed that you've done some motion capture and voiceover work for different video games. Are there any big name ones that you've been involved in?
Well, I did the second lead character for a really, I think it's a really beautiful video game called Harold Halibut.
Okay.
And it's they're all handcrafted. Each character is handmade. So it took them years to make. It's a German company called Slow Brothers.
All right.
And it was just a joy to do it. And it was actually talking of Lure, when I went to the cast and crew screening, Oliver, who wrote Lure and who directed it, said, I've been listening to your voice for 2 years, Pat, because I bought Harold Halibut. And I absolutely love that video game. And I listened to it all the time. And as soon as I heard your voice, I knew it was you.
Wow. That's
So, you know, that was kind of nice, really. And
yeah.
it's been very highly rated and highly reviewed.
All right. I'll keep an
But
eye out for
it's a
that.
charming story. It's not, you know, blood and guts and hitting things. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't play video games, but
Yeah.
I do voiceover recording stuff. But that's the only really big one that I've done.
Oh,
Audio, but yeah, I mean, motion capture. When motion capture first came to the UK, which is I can't even remember how long ago now. There was a company called Pepper's Ghost, who were the first company in this country to have a full motion capture studio.
all right. Okay.
And a friend of mine was involved with it, or knew someone who was involved with it, and they asked me if I would do uh, do all these different motion capture characters for a motion capture library. And
Okay.
that library still exists. And I
Wow.
literally every single day for about 8 hours a day, I recorded thousands and thousands of different characters
Wow.
for this motion capture library. I did it for 6 months, every single day. And I mean, the extraordinary thing about motion capture, whether it's the same now, I don't know because I don't do it at the moment. But at that time, you could be anything as long as you could get the right moves. You know, I was creatures, I was horror things, because it's just,
Yeah.
it's what gets picked up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was playing young guys, I was playing black guys, I was playing little tiny fairies and animals and creatures and horror things and old people and
Wow.
and it was such fun because you literally just walk across the capture and then walk back again and they pick it up and then they can put any kind of body on it and head on
Wow.
it.
That's excellent. I mean, it's good to know that works. That body of work is still out there, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was amazed because this guy Francis, who is the person who asked me if I would do it, um, he was in touch recently. And he said, "Do you know that that library of all your characters is still there for people to use?"
Wow. That's cool. That
Which
is
is kind of, my legacy.
a legacy. Yeah, a lasting legacy.
Yeah.
So are you working on anything at the moment, or have you got anything that you've got sort of lined up to start doing
I
at all?
don't I don't at the moment. I mean the the last thing I did was a still shoot, would you believe, for a charity pet campaign.
Okay.
So it was really weird because my agent, it was for the Wood Green Pet Charity, and
Okay.
my agent sort of said, "Oh, Pat, have you got any photos of yourself with cats? Because I'm passionate about cats." And so I sent him a couple of photos of me with cats, and they cast me. And then I came along for the shoot, and it was, it's photos, obviously.
Yeah.
And they'd cast this huge, great guy and me, and they gave the huge, great guy this little kitten, and I was given a big dog. So it was a bit weird. So, but yeah, but that is literally the last thing I did.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, it was kind of fun. I have to say that I did talk to Howard recently, and he said they're very keen for Bonekeeper 2.
Oh, cool.
Because once you watch Bonekeeper, you'll see very clearly at the end that there is definitely potential for another film.
Oh, that
And,
sounds
and
good.
that would be great. And actually, I made a great connection with him anyway. He was wonderful to work with, and we sort of really got on. So I think there is the outside chance that I will get to do another horror film one day.
Oh, no,
But
that's good.
yeah,
Well, I mean, horror or any other type. I think
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do tapes all the time. I mean, last year, believe it or not, I did 70 self-tapes.
Wow.
Yeah. And the only ones that came off were, in fact, indie projects. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got this really bizarre thing happening this month and next. In May, I've got two films screening at the Kingston International Film Festival, both on the same day, two indie short films that I did. And
Okay.
then I'm going to London Comic Con on I think it's the 23rd of May, because a web series called Ren, The Girl with a Mark, is screening at London Comic Con, and I'm in episode 2 of that, so I'm going along for that.
Okay.
And then apparently a film I'm in called Mercy is screening at Romford Film Festival
All right.
on the 22nd of May. Yes, May, 22nd of May. So I've got four occasions when I can feel as if I'm really an actor.
Oh, well, yeah, he would never call you anything else, to be honest.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you, Andy.
but I mean, I think the thing is, you were saying about a lot of the work you've done recently has been on like indie films and that sort of thing. I think there seems to be a because of the fact that I think the large studios and large companies are wary of where they're putting their money because of the fact
Absolutely.
money is so tight. There
Yeah,
seems to be a real seems to have been a real growth of indie films and indie filmmakers. Quite, I mean, strangely, especially with horror stuff, it
yeah,
seems to be where
yeah,
there seems to be a real growth market in the UK anyway.
yeah,
So there's a lot of those films coming about, and I mean it's great to have people. Sometimes the problem with indie films is the fact that you get people in them that haven't had a lot of experience of acting.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
always good to have somebody in an indie film who has a bit more of experience of acting and can bring a bit more to it,
yes, yeah. I think
and
it's
give a
really
bit more
important.
depth to it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, I hope that it's always been a bit tough as you get up, particularly as a woman, I think that as you get older,
Yeah,
there are less and less roles. But I think things are getting better. The problem, because of the financial restrictions and the fact that producers understandably want big names, it's now got to that stage where a lot of the older actors who would never have touched the lower budget productions or even TV sometimes are now saying, yes, please, give it to me, or even short films. I mean,
yeah,
you know, Miriam Margolyes is a classic example in a way that, she's wonderful. I've worked with her, so she is a wonderful woman, and she's doing short films, and I've seen myself I know we both do Film Freeway, the judging. I've
yeah,
watched short films where there's actresses and actors where I think, oh wow, she's doing a low budget short film. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
and I think it's also that I love working. I really do love it. I'm happy when I'm working, and I'm happy when I'm working with a great team and with great
Mm.
people. It's invigorating in every sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we all want to work, and I understand that completely. But I mean, I've
Mm.
had a few occasions where it's been between me and I won't say the names, but a couple of well-known names, and understandably, it didn't go to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good. I think if you've got somebody that's got a name that people recognise, people are
Absolutely.
drawn to it by that name. So
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
understand why they would go for that. But equally, sometimes you need to look at whether or not they're the right, whether their performance is right for the film you're
Yeah.
making.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Going back a bit.
Okay.
And actually, this is coming away from the horror and sci-fi stuff in a way, but I didn't realize that firstly, not only did you work for Jim Henson Company, which I think are a brilliant company,
Oh,
and
they're wonderful. I
they've
love
made
them.
some amazing films and
Yeah.
TV shows and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Yeah.
But the I was interested to see you put up some posts on your social media a little earlier this year about the work you'd done on Santa Claus the movie. And I hadn't realized that you were that heavily involved in that.
Oh
So
God, yes.
I mean, I know you said you did choreography for it, but what actually, what was your role in that? What sort of things were you doing?
Well, I was basically given 250 short men to work with who
Right.
played the elves, and they had a dispensation from equity because there weren't enough equity membered actors. So they basically were allowed, everyone had to be the same height as Dudley Moore.
Right.
So they just got people off the streets and they got people who would otherwise be probably doing supporting artist work. And they all had to do, I don't know if you remember, making the Christmas presents,
Yeah.
all of the stuff that was done to music, the getting up in the morning and sliding down the fireman's pole, which almost killed me because I did it first. And, these days there would have been a safety officer or someone saying, no, 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 we need a stunt person to do that. But
Yeah.
this was 1984, I think we did it. And the 60-foot pole, and all, the special elves had to all slide down it to go to work. And they all kind of stood at the top, and they were looking at it and said, Pat, how do we do? Oh, I said, don't worry, it's easy. So I sort of jumped onto this pole and slid down, burnt my hands really badly, and
Oh,
almost broke my legs landing
oh, blimey.
because I just went for it because
Yeah.
I didn't really think. Um, but yeah, so literally every single thing that was done to music, I was working, and I was all on my own with these 250 guys. It was the weirdest situation because I've never worked with an assistant. So, I was just sort of getting them all to work with music and they were tapping their things and wrapping the parcels and passing things along. And it all had to be done in time with music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they at the end there's a big dance where they're all dancing around and Dudley Moore had to do some dancing as well. And also there were the girls that were the really tall girls that were part of Patcher's thing with his candy canes.
Yeah.
That was a fully choreographed number, and it had to be done with these. All the dancers were about 6 foot tall minimum, so that poor Dudley's kind of got, hoping not to get kicked in the face or
Yeah.
whatever. So that was quite a challenge to do that too. And I also played the choreographer in it when in the ballet class when there's a little fight and I sort of rush in
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
break up the fight. So I played a few roles in it, but all the work, all the stuff that was done by the elves was me,
Wow.
everything, the whole thing.
That
So again,
sounds,
it was a fabulous job. I mean, Jeannot was great fun to work with, and I was very sad when he died. He was a lovely guy, and it was him who recommended me to Frank Oz for
all
Little
right.
Shop. Yeah, I mean, we got on really well, and I had a great deal of fun doing it. And he, towards the end of the shoot, he said, "Do you know they're making the film of Little Shop of Horrors?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "Yes, they are, and they're looking for a choreographer, and I'm going to recommend you, Pat." So
Wow.
that's how I first met Frank.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I,
I was
I
very
mean,
lucky.
I love Little Shop of Horrors. I thought it was brilliant. I love Santa Claus the movie, to be honest. All those things. They're kind
Oh,
of part of um not they weren't my childhood, it was after that, but it was part of me growing up. I kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it was all very good.
Yeah, I'm very proud of Little Shop. I really am. Having said that, when I went to the premiere of it, as often happens when you go and see your own work, all I saw was the stuff they'd cut. I mean, literally, that I kept thinking, "Oh no, they've cut," and it was partly because the three girls were so incredible that
Yeah.
they upstaged everybody. I mean, those three girls were amazing.
What I will say is the fact that I have seen Little Shop of Horrors on stage twice, two different
Okay,
productions,
right.
and both times they had elements in the stage show that were directly lifted from the film. So,
Wow.
so that your work in the film has obviously moved on to the stage versions as well.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Oh wow.
Yeah, it was good fun to watch on stage actually, but yeah, there were
Yeah.
definitely parts
Yeah.
in there because I've seen it in film first, and then when it's seeing it on stage, it was just kind of like I could see the parts that were almost directly lifted from the film.
Yeah. 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 I
Yeah,
remember actually I went on a cruise once and they had excerpts from Little Shop of Horrors. And I remember watching it and thinking, that's completely my choreography. They've
yeah,
actually copied it all.
yeah. So I mean, well, it it shows that it must have been good. It must have been, and it works. That's the thing. You wouldn't want
Yeah.
to do it if it didn't work. So,
No, no, no. I mean, I had, it was an incredible privilege to do it. And of course, it was Frank who recommended me to Brian Henson when Brian was about to do Muppet Christmas Carol.
yeah,
Frank, we did, I can't remember what they're called now, where you have lots of people on the phone together.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Conference call.
Yeah, so Frank had said to Brian, have Pat, she'll be perfect. And I was so lucky because I got to puppeteer Kermit's legs dancing down the street in that little scene, which was, an amazing thing to be allowed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because I puppeteered his legs. And of course, because he's green, we had to do it against blue screen.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah,
Yeah, it was fun because it was a rolling barrel, and there were five of us, one on each side, and me at the back doing the legs and the lip syncing and all the rest of it. And the barrel was rolling, so we just kept the dance going without having to go anywhere. But all of us in blue.
it does sound like fun. It does. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm not going to ask you about where you think you're going to want to go with your career because it's been so long and varied already. I would just like to say that I hope that you keep working for as long as
Thank you.
possible,
Thank
and
you.
I hope to see you in some more films in the near future.
Thank you so much, Andy. Really, it's been a lovely podcast. I've really enjoyed it. And
Thank
I
you.
hope that your wishes come true. Because as
Thank,
far as I'm concerned, I just want to keep doing it.
yeah, and so you should.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for being on the show. It's been great to talk to you.
Great pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Good. As I said, everybody out there, I will put up, as I always do, I'll put links to Pat's social media so you can keep an eye on what she's doing and what's happening as far as her
Oh,
film
thank
career
you.
and
Thank
everything is
you.
concerned. Keep an eye out. Have a look for Bone Keeper on Prime or anywhere wherever else it may be, and or
Apple.
Apple. That's the other
Yeah.
one. And as I say, I hope to see you in some other films very soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Take care.
thank you to everybody for watching, and we'll be back again soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
The Sciforror Film Podcast.